Hey friends! Alright, so today I have a tips and tricks video on how to get started with your hot glue gun. So hopefully for you experts out there, you may know a lot of this, but hopefully I catch you with something you don't know, so stick around and find out. I've got about like 12-ish tips here. I don't know, we might add in some more as I go because, you know, sometimes I think of things on the fly. So let's go ahead and get into tip number 1. Alright, so first things first is you got your new glue gun, and glue sticks come in 2 different sizes. You've got mini and full size. So know which glue gun you have first. You either have a full size glue gun or a mini size glue gun. Make sure you check the package first things first so you know how to buy the proper glue stick. Nothing is worse than getting your glue gun and wanting to start your project and having the wrong size glue stick and literally not being able to get started. So be sure to check your glue gun first and get the right glue stick that fits in your glue gun. So the next big thing is your temperature of your glue gun. So there's 2 different temperatures that you can do. You can do a low temp glue gun or a high temp glue gun. So first things first is know what material you're working with. So if you're working with styrofoam, foam, delicate fabric, ribbon, anything like that, you're gonna wanna stick with a low temp glue gun because you don't wanna damage it. Fun fact is that a low temp glue gun can also work on balloons. So if you're doing balloon arches, amazing lifesaver is just glue the balloons exactly where you want them, and it's amazing that these glue guns are low temp enough to make that work. So if you're working with heavier or thicker materials like wood, metal, plastic, or any sort of thick material like leather or thick fabric like felt, you're gonna wanna go ahead and use a high temp glue gun. That way it has the best bond possible. Be careful with using low temp glue sticks into a high temp gun because what's gonna happen is it's gonna make that glue really runny and get too hot and just kind of leak through your glue gun in not a best way. Same thing with your high temp glue sticks going into a low temp gun. It's not gonna get the right bond. So best thing to do is use the right temperature glue stick with the right temperature glue gun, so that way you're getting the best optimal results. So if you're like me, you are an impatient crafter. However, with glue guns, you want to make sure that you let them fully heat up. If you don't, you're gonna cause problems with your glue gun. If you start forcing your glue through your glue gun when it's not fully heat up, you're gonna start breaking things. And that is the worst possible thing to happen when you're crafting and you're like, I'm doing this project and now I just broke my glue gun and now you have to wait longer, which doesn't help with the impatientness. Make sure that you fully wait for that glue gun to heat up. And what I like to do is kind of pull on my trigger of my glue gun here, and just if the glue starts flowing real easy and nice with 0 resistance, it's ready to go. If there is any resistance on that trigger, stop and wait, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna start breaking the pushing mechanism here and the springs inside, and then your glue gun's toast. So speaking from experience and being sad, having to stop, don't force your glue gun. Another fun fact is that the glue guns are much higher wattage, so they get really, really hot. It does take longer to heat up because of the high wattage. However, because of that, they stay hotter longer, so you can have continuous heat through your whole project versus it just cooling up and down, up and down. That's one thing I like about the Surebonder glue guns, because it's not a cheap one that'll kind of cool and deregulate their temperatures, is because it'll stay hot for your whole project. That way, once it's heat up, you can just keep on going. Keep in mind, you want to keep that glue at the right temperature. When it's fully heated, you're going to get the best bond possible. If your glue gun isn't fully heated and you're still able to get some glue out, it's not going to be at the right temperature. Your bond is not going to be as good, and you're going to have breakage, damage. It's not going to work best for you. So be patient, make sure the glue is fully heated up so that way you don't break your glue gun and you get the best bond possible. Also keep in mind, as soon as you start laying down your glue on your project piece, is that it's gonna start rapidly cooling. So you wanna work fast. All right, so we're gonna move on to my tip with the cordless glue guns. So I get a lot of questions about these glue guns and issues and problems from people. I go into a lot of details in my review video, so go check that video out. However, right now I wanted to answer a few questions and tips regarding this so you can have a better understanding how it works. So all the cordless glue guns, there's no battery in here heating up the heating element. So what's happening is when you're adding it to the base, it's actually reheating the heating element. So you only get about 90 seconds to 2 minutes of time. These cordless glue guns are designed to hold their heat longer, which is a really great bonus if you're working on more dynamic projects that you need more room and you can't be restricted by a cord. Keep in mind you need to work quickly But always after every glue, it's best to just put the glue gun back on its base, because we're gonna go back to that impatient crafter. So if I were to leave it off the base and work for the full 2 minutes, and then I'm starting to feel the resistance in my trigger, which means it's definitely cooling down, and I were to put it back on here, it needs to take another minute or so for it to reheat again, and now I'm waiting. So best practices when using the cordless glue guns is every time you're gluing, constantly put it right back on the base, and then that way you're constantly ready to go. So the best thing about this glue gun is that if you don't need the cordless feature and don't want to constantly put it on the base, you can unplug the bottom, plug it into the bottom of the glue gun, and now you have a regular glue gun just like any other one. All right, so I'm gonna go back to glue sticks because you can't have a glue gun without hot glue sticks. So make sure, my biggest tip of the day is buy quality glue sticks. I love the SureBonder glue sticks because they put quality ingredients like extra tackifiers and resin. I know, big words. Unlike all of the cheaper craft store brand glue sticks, I get so many problems and concerns from people asking questions about why their glue gun's not working, and 9 times out of 10, it's because they're using cheap glue sticks that are not melting properly, the temperature's wrong, they're not getting a good bond from them, they're cloudy, gross, they're actually jamming their glue guns because the diameters are off. So my biggest tip of the day is buy quality glue sticks first, because then you won't have to waste so much of the garbage glue sticks. For my next tip with working with hot glue guns and glue sticks is working on silicone mats. So I didn't even know how much I loved these until SureBonder sent me some, and I'm like, where have they been all my life? So not only do these mats protect your surface, it creates extremely easy cleanup. So any glue drips, drops get on here, you just swipe them away and your mat looks clean every single time. So if you've been around the block with glue guns, then you absolutely know about those pesky spider webs that are obnoxious and terrible and everybody hates. So here is my tip about how to reduce or eliminate spider webs altogether. When you are doing any sort of gluing, if it's a line or anything, so as you're ending whatever you're gluing, do a little swirl to break it, and then hover your glue tip that's super hot next to the edge of your glue. And it completely eliminates all your spider webs, which is game changer. Now, if you're someone like me who's like constantly like, oh, I'm gluing and gluing and gluing because I'm impatient and don't have time for that, because what crafter does, and you create spider webs, handy dandy tip, grab your hairdryer on high heat, blast those spider webs, and a lot of them will melt and fly away, and they'll be easier to collect and remove after that. And now talk about that cleanup. Easy peasy. Now let's chat about a few tips with working with hot glue. So first thing I like to do when I'm doing felt flowers, and I have a lot of these flower petals that I have to pinch together. So like we said earlier, you have to have a good bond, so you want to make sure that glue is set before you're moving on, and I don't got time for that. So what I like to do is throw a little glue here, pinch, and instead of just holding this for a minute while it's setting, I grab these little clips, and now I have extra sets of fingers that I can put that aside and do countless more of these. So for our next tip with working with hot glue, because it's hot, we don't necessarily want to touch it with our fingers, is another thing is we can use these silicone spatulas if you have one in your kitchen. I also have this smaller little silicone pad that I'll use too, but what's nice is if you're gluing something together, especially if you're using something really thin like fabric or ribbon, and you don't want to, the glue is kind of beating through and it's really hot, what I like to do is just use another piece of silicone to hold it down and let that set. That way, none of that glue is getting on your fingers and you're not accidentally burning yourself. And then you can also use your silicone spatula and nothing is going to stick to it. It's easy cleanup. So this happens to me a lot where I'm gluing different pieces of felt and a bunch of glue comes out my edge, and nobody likes that. It's ugly. So simply grab your scissors and you can just cut it off. I have learned a lot of these tips from just being impatient, putting too much glue and it coming out and being like, oh no. Grab your scissors, cut it off. It cuts like a dream. And now you have a nice clean edge and it's still glued tight. All right, so I mentioned it before, but I'm gonna say it again because it's very tempting. Don't touch your hot glue after you put it on your mat. I know it looks fun, I know it looks pretty, and we wanna touch it, check if it's set, but don't touch it if you want a nice clean finish. If you touch your hot glue as it's drying, it'll become cloudy and gross, and nobody likes that. You want that nice, crisp, clean glue. And that's a throwback to your quality glue sticks, because all of those cheap brands of glue stick are gonna give you a cloudy, yucky finish. So make sure, again, stick with your quality. And now we're gonna go to the tip that I really should be taking daily because I am the absolute worst at this. After you're done with your glue gun, turn it off. Okay, so I'm the worst at this. I usually leave my glue guns on 24/7, and I really shouldn't, but that is my biggest tip to keep it clean, is that what happens when you leave them on for so long is the tips get gummed up, gross, yucky, and that can all be avoided if you're just constantly using them for your project and then turning them off. So be sure to turn them off, and if you forget, bonus feature with all your Sugar Bonder glue guns is that they have an internal safety fuse inside of all of their glue guns, so if you happen to leave it on and it overheats for any reason, you are rest assured that that glue gun is gonna safely turn itself off and not overheat and cause a house fire, because nobody's got time for that. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and segue into another safety tip. So I've got 4 kiddos and a dog, and when I'm crafting, there's always that fear that one of them is gonna rip this glue gun off the table and burn me, because at the end of the day, the tips of these glue guns are hot. Nobody wants to burn themselves on accident. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my handy demonstration table here so that you can see it much better. And my handy glue pen, because it's one of my favorite glue pens. But also this is the one that actually gets ripped off my table the most, is because it doesn't have a base on it. So we're gonna pretend, oh no, there's my cord. And a handy dandy simple binder clip is going to save the day. Simply feed on your cord and attach it to your table. Now, any sort of pulling and wiggling, the glue gun not moving at all, and you're safe to go. All right, so in the flower making world in felt, I make a lot of these billy ball stems or felt ball stems for bouquets and fun things. One thing that's really, really great that I love doing to get a nice clean glue on the tip of my wire is I literally just insert it into the hole. Oh my gosh, if I can do it right now, and twirl it and just squeeze just a little bit, and it perfectly gets glue just on my tip. And then I can slide it right in for a very clean glue on my ball. This works great for felt leaves as well, and other applications where you're working with wire. So keep that in mind. Don't jam it in far, just a little bit. But I love doing this. It speeds up time and it gives a really, really good glue coat on your wire. So for your last tip today, for all of my flower making friends, or really any project that you're working on, you're working on a flower and you accidentally put a petal in the wrong spot and you're like, oh my gosh, I just finished the flower and it's ruined. Instead of just ripping it off and destroying your flower and your piece and having to redo it, here's a handy trick to erase mistakes. For instance, on this petal that's like, oh, I didn't want that there and I totally messed it up. Grab your glue gun and find where you glued it. And this tip is very, very hot, so you can literally remelt the glue that was on there originally. Just do it really slowly and make sure it's not near any fingers, and just remelt that off. Now, I didn't destroy anything about my flower petal. I didn't destroy anything about my project either. So now I can add the glue back on where I want it and put that petal exactly where I want it. And now I have a flower and not a piece of trash anymore that I would have just tossed. So that is your tip of the day on your glue guns. I hope this helped. Throw down a comment if you found any of this helpful and which tip you resonated with the most. Thanks guys, catch you next time.